Right, so hi everyone, my name is Mia, and today I'm going to be presenting a critical analysis of an empirical article written by Jingwan Shi et al., titled Cultural Tightness, Looseness, and Normative Social Influence in 8 Asian Countries, the Associations of Individual and Collective Norms with Vaccination Intentions. So I chose this study because it connects how cultural psychology can shape the way that people respond to health crises. During the COVID-19 pandemic, which was experienced around the world, vaccination was a medical, social, and cultural issue. By understanding the dynamic between different social norms, we are hopefully able to increase health behavior by designing better public health campaigns as we can tailor them to each culture individually. Before we analyze the study, I want to give an overview of the theory behind it. The concept of tightness looseness was proposed by Michelle Gelfand in 2011, and she proposed that tight cultures have strong social norms to conform and a little tolerance for deviance. On the other hand, looser cultures have weaker norms and a higher tolerance for individual differences, which allows for more personal freedom. Tight cultures are suggested to be the result of societies that have had a harder time thriving historically, and this might be due to food shortages, wars, or infectious diseases. In these situations, strict norms and coordinations help communities survive. In contrast, looser cultures are believed to develop in more stable environments and have not experienced these threats, and so coordination is not as essential for survival. Cultural tightness looseness theory connects closely to other frameworks in cultural psychology, such as Hofstede's dimension of individualism collectivism and Marcus and Kitayama's theory of independent and interdependent self construals. In collectivistic and interdependent societies, social norms and self construals are very interconnected. Individuals define themselves through their social relationships and group expectations. This helps explain why people in such societies might be more sensitive to the approval of others when deciding on behaviors such as vaccines. And previous research supports this idea. For example, Betch et al. Found that social norms significantly influence vaccine intent. Furthermore, a study conducted by Rhodes et al. Found that social norms were more strongly associated with behavior in collectivistic cultures compared to independent ones. So, all these reasons are partially why she and all were interested in studying Asian countries, which have already been established as being collectivistic, according to Hofstede. Now, based on this, the study I'm analyzing had one main research question. Do social norms affect COVID-19 vaccination intent, and how does tightness looseness moderate these effects? The main hypothesis was that social norms would be positively related with vaccine intent, and these effects would be stronger in tighter cultures. There were 4 types of social norms that were explored: perceived injunctive norms, which is what you believe others expect you to do; perceived descriptive norms, which is what you believe others are actually doing; collective injunctive norms, which is what society in general approves of; and collective descriptive norms, which is what people in the country are actually doing. Now, the study surveyed 4,836 adults aged 21 and up from 8 Asian countries where the COVID-19 vaccine was not yet mandatory. These countries included Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, China, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam. From this group, the researchers focused on 2,676 people who hadn't yet been vaccinated nor had tested positive for COVID-19. Participants completed a questionnaire about their vaccine intent and their perceptions of social approval regarding the COVID vaccine. Collective norms were measured using the number of vaccine doses given per 100 people in each country on a specific day, and each country's tightness looseness score came from Gelfand's previous global study. The results were analyzed using a hierarchical regression, meaning that the researchers added groups of variables step by step to see how each group affected vaccine intent. And the results supported much of what the researchers predicted. So, first, cultural tightness was positively associated with vaccine intent, and perceived injunctive norms were the strongest predictor of behavior. In other words, when people believed that others expected them to get vaccinated, they were more likely to plan to do so. Perceived descriptive norms and collective injunctive norms were also positively related to vaccine intent, though not as strongly. Interestingly, collective descriptive norms, meaning the actual vaccination rates in a country, were negatively associated with vaccine intent. Now, one possible explanation that the authors offer is that herd immunity thinking, which is the idea that if enough people are vaccinated, your personal risk decreases and your motivation to get vaccinated decreases as a result. This idea was supported by John Hershey, who conducted a study and found that people may be free riders in vaccine behaviors based on the perceived protection of others. Betch et al. Further supported this and suggested that this might be due to the perceived costs of getting the vaccine, such as the potential side effects, time, and money associated with it. The authors also give a contrasting explanation for the negative relationship between vaccine rates and intent. So they state that structural factors, such as a lack of vaccine access, could have played a role in countries with low vaccine rates but high vaccine intent, though they don't specify which countries fall into what category, so there's not a lot of clarification on that. The results also showed that when people's perceived pressure from one's immediate circle was low, collective injunction norms were still motivating for vaccine intent in tight cultures, and this is because people are more sensitive to conformity. Looser cultures, on the other hand, were more influenced by perceived descriptive norms, meaning that people were possibly looking at other people's actions to decide what is a normal behavior, seeing as there's more ambiguity about common behaviors in looser cultures. Now, these findings are relevant for governments and organizations who are responsible for creating public health campaigns. Organizations should focus on perceived injunctive norms overall, highlighting social expectation for pro social behavior in vaccinations. Specifically, in tight countries, campaigns should focus on appealing to collective responsibility, whereas in loose countries, campaigns should highlight descriptive norms, such as showing how many people are already getting vaccinated. Doing this can set this pro social behavior as a standard. Now, the study does have some notable strengths. First, the large and diverse sample from 8 non-Western countries fills an important gap in previous literature. Most psychological research has focused on Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic populations, often referred to as weird samples. This is problematic as weird samples cannot be generalized to the rest of the world. So, this study thus offers valuable cross cultural insight. The researchers also used strong research methods to ensure reliability. They included attention check questions to make sure that participants were not simply rushing through the survey, and they used a back translation process to ensure translation accuracy across all the different languages. The study also offers a clear distinction between collective and perceived norms, which helps deepen our understanding of how social influences operate on a personal and societal level. Previous literature often focuses on either one social norm or on the broad term of social norms without clear distinctions between them. So, this study gives us more insight on what specific norms affect intent. Furthermore, the findings are also relevant to the real world, as I mentioned, as it offers insight on how governments and organizations can create culturally tailored health campaigns. Finally, the study adds depth to previous research in cultural psychology by adding the dimension of tightness looseness to social norms. Kitayama's East West dichotomy and Hofstede scale postulate that all Asian countries are interdependent and collectivistic. She and al. Extend this way of thinking by showing the variation between Asian countries in their sensitivity to social norms. This could be interpreted as different countries having different gradations of interdependence depending on cultural tightness looseness. Overall, they challenge previous researchers' oversimplification of cultural influences on behavior. Now, despite these strengths, the study does have some limitations. One key issue is that the 8 countries examined are all relatively tight cultures. Because of this, there was limited variation in cultural tightness, which may have underestimated the moderating effect of tightness looseness overall. The sample was also restricted to East and Southeast Asia, which limits the generalizability to other parts of Asia or non Asian countries. The sampling within each country was also uneven, which creates possible biased results. Another thing to keep in mind is that the study is cross sectional, so the researchers could not establish a causal relationship between the social norms and vaccine intent, they could only establish a correlation. To strengthen future research, the authors recommend including countries with a wider range of tightness looseness to better capture cultural variation. I would also recommend including non Asian countries so that we get better cross cultural insight. Furthermore, a suggestion was made to explore new ways of measuring collective norms, such as using social media to capture real time public attitudes. Overall, the study makes a valuable contribution to our understanding of how culture and social norms shape health behavior. This paper moves our understanding of cultural psychology to a more multidimensional model. It highlights that in times of crisis, people's actions are not only guided by perceived norms, but also by collective ones, which are guided by the social and cultural environments that we live in. Recognizing these cultural differences can help governments and health organizations create more effective and relatable campaigns that encourage pro social behaviors. Thank you for listening.